seared in my mind. It's real. It was very real, and it was very familiar. Like, even though I didn't know where I was, I absolutely knew where I was. If that makes sense. I know it doesn't make sense, but it was. I was home. I
Yeah,
don't know. I was
that's a common
comfortable.
that's a common way people will describe it as home.
In this video, I'm going to be analyzing a near-death experience that I thought was really interesting given the fact that the experience ties to certain aspects of the research that I've been cataloging in this channel. This will be the purpose of me analyzing altered states of consciousness to synthesize and connect the experiences to the research or philosophies that I feature in this channel. I will start with NDEs, given that other altered states of consciousness can be quite controversial and at this moment affect the channel. They will be addressed in the future or in a private section of the channel. This will be also an opportunity to recommend other YouTube channels or media from the people involved in this research and to connect with the experiences themselves as they gain life-altering knowledge which they share to their experiences. This might be addressed as I analyze these clips. However, tying the scientific research will be the main goal for these videos. All the pertinent links to the channels, the podcast, the experiences themselves can be found below in the description, and I would highly recommend for people to go through them if they're truly interested into knowing about the consequences that these experiences have had in their lives. Given that in 2022 we had the first scientific consensus statement for the future research on near-death experiences, link below, I figured the best way to start introducing altered states of consciousness into this channel would be through NDEs, which have started to be documented and analyzed by both experts in the medical fields and media at large. They offer a myriad of questions, answers, but mostly they could be the key to tie the loose ends we've had in our philosophies and modern scientific research. These more as an approximation to a truth than a final answer. At the end of the day, the bulk of the research and data will speak for itself. In this specific near-death experience, the experiencer speaks about out-of-body experience. The out-of-body experience she experienced while doing the NDE. This could give us an insight in how it is like to be or to have consciousness, to exist as a disincarnate entity. Before I move forward, I would like to remind you that if you want to join the growing discussion on consciousness and would like to be notified on the latest scientific discoveries and theories surrounding this topic and how they connect to ancient mythologies and philosophies, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, as I'll try to upload at least one video per week as I continue with the outline.
And so I got sent back into my body. But before I say that, like, I would just say, when we're out of body, you're huge, like you're everywhere. Like, it's this humongous amount of space you're taking up without taking up space. And I could feel that I had a density to me, but I also was intermingling with other energies that I couldn't see, but I could feel. It's really hard to explain. But I realized I didn't have a head or eyes. So I don't know how I could see, but I could see in 360 degrees, like, because there was no head, bone, like skull to like impede your vision, like at all. So I could just see everything. If I thought about what's behind me, I could see everything. Like, it, just anything at the thought of, at the speed of thought, it was there, available. It's weird.
Alright, so as I mentioned, I'm going to be looking at the near-death experience of Annalie Stone. She featured her near-death experience in the Jeff Mara podcast. I think she went on in other through other YouTube channels, but if you don't follow the Jeff Mara podcast, I would highly recommend that you follow him. He has one of the biggest catalogs on near-death experiences, and as I said, he has some other topics in there as well. When you study consciousness for a long time, you'll realize that the UFO phenomenon peaks around. He has some videos on this. As I said, I'm going to be covering this in a private section of the channel in the future. So all the links to the Jeff Mara podcast, to any relevant links, are going to be below. So I took these clips from the Jeff Mara podcast, and okay. So she mentions a lot of very interesting things. She explains how her out-of-body experience felt. So a lot of people don't really see a lot of things. They more like feel things. They understand things. They perceive things. So a few things that really got my interest is that she felt huge. She felt that she was in a lot of space, but without taking any space. She also mentions the idea of density. So now there are a lot of people have this idea and have come forward with suggesting that the soul, the concept of a soul is not inside our body. Our soul is not inside our body. Rather, our body is inside our soul. What would this even mean, that the soul is outside of us? This would mean that there is something larger than us at an energy level. And she does mention that she was, quote unquote, intermingling with other energies. So now, one of the things that I've been featuring in this channel is the concept of fields. Now, as Einstein said, when you think about matter, you think about matter in terms of energy within fields and not the other way around. So the field perhaps could be more important than what we think it is. And perhaps could it be that we are the field itself? And now she mentions another thing. I'm just popping out questions that I'm gonna be looking thoroughly in the future. So she mentions 360 degrees vision. Now, this is a recurrent theme that happens in the experience. A lot of people say this about these 360 degrees visions without, and she mentions something interesting here, that the skull, the eyes, physicality was not in the way of her quote-unquote vision. There are some other near-death experiences where people who were born blind were able to see, and these are cataloged in the near-death experiences forum. So there's something very interesting happening when people go out of body in this experience. And now the fact that this idea of 360 degrees vision repeats over and over and over tells us that there is perhaps something to this notion. She also mentions the idea of having things available at the speed of thought. She goes on further on this, and she speaks about this idea of reaching places, seeing things, seeing people from her life just when she was thinking about them, just in the way of tapping with all the information in her world, in the things that were relevant to her when she passed on.
They were not even paying attention to my body anymore. Like, and also I was still hooked up to the monitors, but there was no previous beeping that happened to alert them that I was coming back. Right. So I just shot up, and immediately I knew what had happened. I knew I had died. I didn't know how long it had been, but I started asking him, did you say this? Did you, and I'm like, did you say something about me being a former drug addict? And the doctor was like, how do you know that? And I'm like, please tell me I'm wrong. Like, please tell me I didn't hear that. You know what I mean? Like, because I understood that if it was true, that would mean that, yeah, I died and like was still able to see everything and what was going on. And he just was like, I'm sorry. He just apologizing. I'm like, did you say it or not? He's like, yeah.
This aspect of near-death experiences is one of the aspects that are turning the medical fields to pay attention to it. So what this is called the cross-corroboration of the near-death experience. And what happened is that when people were going out of body at the moment of death, they would see the room around them. Some say that they went up to the ceiling and they would see things around them. They would see the doctors doing their procedures, or when they died, how the doctors reacted. So in this case, she explains on how the doctor made some comments about her. I think he was in a different room, and since she was this, and something that I forgot to say in the previous clip was the idea of people becoming this higher consciousness, becoming more conscious about their surroundings and about everything that happens. Some people say that they can hear people's thoughts or see other people's conversations, or travel to where their family members what they were doing at the moment that the experiences died. So in this case, she heard this doctor make some comments about her, and the doctor then went on to say and to try to apologize to her about the comments, because she heard these comments while she was dead. So and you know what she's saying here is, it doesn't matter, she just wants to know if it was true, because this is a huge confirmation. And now this is just anecdotal, something that happens between the experiencers and the doctors, the people in the medical fields. And when you see people like Pim Van Lommel, Raymond Moody, and Peter Fenwick, which are people in the medical fields who have heard these stories from other doctors, from other people in the medical fields, this is why they're taking it serious. I feature some of the ideas of Peter Fenwick. I'm gonna link it somewhere in the screen right now. But this is the cross corroboration that makes the whole thing very interesting for people in the medical fields, because they are in this field. They know people who have had an experience like this. And now Sam Parnia, I believe, is someone who's trying to in hospices, in places where people are prone to maybe pass on, to put little signals like on top of a shelf or things of that nature, to see if he can cross corroborate some of these peculiar or specific details that these experiences come and tell about their experience. Now this is something very complicated to do. The methodology is not really there, and there's a lot of ethical and moral questions about the whole thing. But this is something that, at least in the stories within the medical fields, exists, and this is started to be documented.
Like I said, there was encoded messages, and so over time, I started to get the answers for what I had been questioning about that experience. But that's what happened that day, and I came back completely different. Like everything about me was different. My personality, my drive, my mission in life, my purpose. I had a clear idea now of what I needed to be doing, whereas before I just, didn't know what I should be doing with my life. And it's changed my selfishness, and a sense of ego, like problematic ego, has been curbed greatly. And now I'm just all about teaching and being of service to other people, whereas before I wouldn't have cared at all about that kind of stuff in any way, shape, or form. But it's been hard because as a former research scientist.
In a lot of near-death experiences, people talk about how they met either a religious figure, family members, and so on and so forth. These figures, these people they see in their near-death experiences, they usually have some sort of message to share with them. Often it's not very clear, sometimes it's quite clear. And in her case, she saw a version of herself, and even though there was not a huge conversation happening, a lot of people do mention that there is this conversation. Of course, these conversations are always telepathic, which is something that I'm going to be talking about in the future. This quantum telepathy has been proved by science. I'm going to go into the research in the future. However, she mentions that there was one word spoken, and there were some other messages that she was deciphering, and she went on. This is not a physical one-to-one conversation. This is something that happens on a different level. They say this conversation is telepathic. Sometimes they say that it's just instant. They just understand certain things. Now, one of the things that, as I said, I'm not gonna go very deep into it, but I might go into it because it is important. And it is one of the themes. People who come back from these experiences, they have a different idea of ego. They understand this connection between everything, and as I said, we had this Okay, so here is where things are gonna start to get interesting. Here is where I'm gonna start connecting this research and this scientific research and so on and so forth. This is where things are gonna get complicated. I'm gonna try to make this argument. As I said, this is gonna be a rough argument, a rough beginning of the argument, which I'm gonna be polishing in the future. So if you're not following, that's fine. I'm gonna keep approaching this. But if you have followed my channel, if you are acquainted with the research, with quantum research and so on and so forth, please pay attention, because this is where I start making the argument. Okay, so 2022 we had the Nobel Prize in Physics, which pointed to the reality that entanglement is a real phenomenon, quantum entanglement, this spooky action at a distance that Einstein talked about. So what this tells us is that the universe is not locally real. As I made the argument, the reason why entangled particles react to each other faster than the speed of light is like because the argument is they cannot travel faster than the speed of light, because nothing travels faster than the speed of light. And maybe we're talking about light as a whole, as I've been saying, but in any case, the idea, my argument is that they're not really traveling, because everything is connected, everything is part of the same thing, so it's instantaneous. The idea that there's no locality, everything is connected. And she's saying that she is huge in spirit, and she can travel at the speed of thought. When you think about something, it's not traveling. She's simply there. This is something that near-death experiencers talk about when they think about their family, when they think about a place, whether they think about somewhere else in the universe. They're just there, because everything seems to be connected. So now we're talking about very strange things that are happening here. Okay, so I'm gonna link that 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics. I made a video about it. I'm gonna link it somewhere on the screen. Okay, so this is the first story. The first story is about oneness, about this togetherness of everything, this connection between everything, the universe being not local. Really, how do the near-death experiences portray this? How do they experience this after their near-death experiences? Is that they have a different idea of what ego is. They have the idea that it's all about others as well. It's all about how they make feel others, because in their live reviews they see the time that they hurt others. And now the live review, we're gonna put a big parenthesis on that. We're gonna an asterisk on that, because we're gonna go into that in the future. But so this is how they experience. It's all about the others. Now the second story. So first story is about oneness, togetherness, and we have science which is confirming this. The second story is about quote unquote contact. We are making contact with what exactly? In her story, she sees a version of herself, which a lot of people claim to be the higher self. There is this quote-unquote higher self. So other people see religious figures. Some people say things in the nature of when people say they see Jesus in their experiences, a lot of people don't really see Jesus. They just saw someone or something or some figure which they knew in their hearts that it was Jesus. Some other people see different types of beings or energy beings or family members. Regardless of the case, we're making contact with something. Now, this something is not from Earth, it seems. It's from somewhere else, or a light, or something of that nature. In her case, as she said, a version of herself. We are making contact with something, and this something is giving people messages in different ways. Some people are told directly, some people have long conversations which are very defined. In her case, she simply understood it. She simply understood something. But the theme is that they all come back with the idea that it's virtuous to be in service of others, to help others. This is it's all about the relationships. Now, in my previous video, I talked about Tesla's views on marriage and how he claims that the spirit of cooperation has been fading, and I made the argument that this is not only between genders, male and female, this is in society at large, because we're going through a nihilistic, individualistic, hedonistic society. This is our society right now. It's all about the individual. It's all about me, what I want, what I need, and it's all very selfish. Now, a lot of people thought that am I going to be against women or anything like that? It's not. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with this idea of unity. Now, the message that these people are bringing is that we're all part of the same thing, and we have to pay attention to this. We have to pay attention to how we relate to each other. It seems to be important. Who are we contacting? Why is this the case? Why is this important? We don't know, but the message is very clear. Something to take into consideration.
You said that you were intermingling with other energies.
Mhm.
Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, like, so I didn't see anyone, right? Like, I didn't see it. Like, I didn't see the dead relatives or any of that or any other beings, but I felt them. Like, I was not alone. Like, so, when we're out of body, we're like little dots of light almost. I don't know how to really say it, but it's spread over a very immense area. And at the edges of it, where, like, I guess if you want to just use your hands and fingers as an example, like as you reach out as far as your arm span can go, it's much bigger than that. But at the ends of like where your fingers would be, you can feel other energies that are like yours, but not yours, like around. And I could feel that like all around me, every like boundary, quote unquote, of myself, which is hard to even define, but I could feel other beings around me. So I wasn't like, oh God, I'm all by myself in this place. I just didn't see anyone else, but I wasn't alone.
And you weren't communicating with them.
No, so the only communication that I had was with myself, which did not happen verbally. It happened in telepathically.
All right, so this is a very complex way to explain what she was experiencing, but this is in the research. A lot of people say this, that they go into this cosmic setting where they see other dots of light, and that's what a lot of people say, that we are dots of light. And I've been doing this research on how everything is the light, and this is what Nikola Tesla said in a lost interview, and we have science behind it, and so on and so forth. And then people go on and have there's hundreds of millions of reports of near-death experiences, and a lot of them, they sometimes experience this being in a cosmic setting as a dot of light. Now she speaks about space, she speaks about how she expanded, she was an expansive thing, sort of like a field of intelligence. Now, I've been going on with the research on fields as well. I recently published a video on Rupert Sheldrake's morphic resonance and how he believes that everything has to do with fields, and fields are what create morphology or forms or things. Even he thinks about these fields also as just pure information which shapes culture, to say a thing. It's a metaphysical thing. So we have these people, and she is saying that when you're out of body, this is how you experience things. And a lot of people are saying this 360 vision. So what are we? As I said at the beginning of the video, after the first clips, that a lot of people say that it's not that we have a soul inside our body, but that we have a body inside our soul. What this means is that we are something else. Now, there are different ways in which this has started to be understood. If you go into Tom Campbell's, former NASA scientist, NASA physicist, who has books on consciousness and has gone deep into the study on this, and he went into do some research at the Monroe Institute and so on and so forth. He conceptualizes beings or humans as individuated units of consciousness. Now, the fact that she says, I'm not gonna go into this right now, but if you go into the full episode of this Jeff Mara podcast, she speaks. The conversation turns very philosophical, and one of the things that is mentioned is that even through this form of existence, even through being perhaps a field of consciousness or a field of intelligence that she was, as she was inside in this cosmic setting, she retained her personal consciousness. She was experiencing things as herself, and she comes with the experience and she tells it like if it was herself, but she was different in a way. So this repeats in the research of near-death experience. Now, she explains that at the boundaries of this heightened conscious field that she could feel that there were others. There were other beings, or other light dots, or other expansive fields. So it begs the question, if all of this is real, if what near-death experiencers are coming back with is real, it would have a paradigm shifting effect on how we understand ourselves. What are we exactly? Are we these bodies? Are we these bags or of bones and flesh? Or are we something else? Are we the field itself, or individuated units of the larger field of consciousness, which some people might call God, quote unquote? As I said, the study on near-death experiences brings about a myriad of questions, more questions than answers, but it does bring answers, especially when you tie the research. And now, I'm finishing here with this thought. Well, at least the scientific thing. If we go into the Orcoar theory, and she does mention the theory in the full interview, she's very smart, and she looks at it from a scientific perspective because she has some background in this, and she speaks about the Orcoar theory states that we have this quantum information in the microtubules, and at the moment of death, this information is expanded. It leaks into perhaps the larger, let's call it a quantum field. It leaks into the larger quantum field. So when they explain things like this, that they become these fields of consciousness, let's call it fields of consciousness, I think I like that, maybe I'll go with it. They intermingle with others. So what exactly are we? So this is why when I make these videos about the Rupert Sheldrake and about the Orcoar theory, I call it a framework, a scientific framework for the soul. The concept of a soul. What is a soul? Is a soul something like a translucent blanket that has some sort of morphology as we think about ghosts or souls? Or are we talking about perhaps electromagnetic energy? She does mention that at some point in the interview that she felt sort of a density to her as she was this conscious field. And when we go into the science, we start talking about electromagnetic fields. I made this video called Potentially Everything is the Light, where I go into the idea that everything at the core is electromagnetic energy. Photons, and this theme keeps repeating in their experiences, how we are these dots of light. So as I said, this is a rough approach to the argument. I'm going to be polishing this argument aside. I'm going to introduce in this year, as I said, we reached 1,000 subscribers in this channel this year. I want to introduce near-death experiences as I go on forward, and I am finishing the second book that I'm writing, and it's gonna be heavy into the official scientific research on near-death experiences and how does it relate to understanding who we are as human beings. So this is a very rough argument, but it leads us into trying to understand what exactly are we talking about here? What are we as human beings?
Did the other side seem dreamlike or more real than here?
Oh, that's a good question. It wasn't like when we dream vividly, it wasn't like that. It was real. It's a different, in my memory bank, if I think of a dream that I had that was really vivid, this doesn't even compare at all. Like it's like a million times more than that. It's like I cannot forget a detail about it ever. It's seared in my mind. It's real. It was very real, and it was very familiar. Like even though I didn't know where I was, I absolutely knew where I was. If that makes sense. I know it doesn't make sense, but I was home.
Yeah,
I don't know. I
that's
was comfortable.
That's a common way people will describe it, as home.
Yeah, like I knew when I heard nope. I was like, God dang it, I'm going back. Like that was like I knew exactly what it meant, and I was like, oh, here we go. And I was kind of bummed about it a little bit, but not. That was only when I came back. I was like, oh, that was really pleasant. Like I'd way rather be there than back here. Like and then the fact that I'm a mom and all that stuff kicked back in. I'm like, okay, well, thank God I'm back. But for that brief moment, like, it was like, so yeah, it's definitely more real.
This is another theme that keeps repeating in near-death experiences, which is really, really important because it'll allow us to understand more of what we are, what we seem to be in reality. So this is actually a part of the consensus, the scientific consensus statement for the future research of near-death experiences. I'm gonna link it somewhere on the screen if maybe I have already. Otherwise, you can find all the relevant links below. And as I said, this is no longer philosophy. This is no longer just reports. This is published research. So among their conclusions, it says here, the recalled experiences surrounding death are not consistent with hallucinations, illusions, or psychedelic drug-induced experiences. According to several previously published studies, instead, they follow a specific narrative arc involving a perception of. And now, I chose this near-death experience to review right now because it's a little bit different from the usual ones, but I'll go into it in just a second. So it says, separation from the body with a heightened, vast sense of consciousness and recognition of death. This is exactly what happened to her. This is exactly what she is explaining here, that she became this sort of field of consciousness, a heightened sense of consciousness. At large in the interview, she speaks on how she could travel at the speed of thought. And if she wanted to think about some of her family or something like that, she could just travel at the speed of thought. Okay, so there's that part. As I said, these reports are hundreds of millions of reports. This is what it is stated in the scientific consensus statement. B, travel to a destination. She did not see a tunnel. I don't think she mentions that. Some people are just there. Some people need the idea of traveling. If you go into some Asian near-death experiences, people travel a road. So it's different for different people. A meaningful and purposeful review of life involving a critical analysis of all actions, intentions, and thoughts towards others. So this is really important. Even though she did not have a live review, this analysis of life, why would the brain even do this? What would be the purpose for the brain to do this? Or is the brain moral? Because a lot of people say that near-death experiences are just the brain reliving memories. Why does the brain care about the intentions and thoughts towards others? And now I wanted to choose this near-death experience because she did not have a live review. What happened to her is she met some version of herself, let's call it her higher self, to name it something, and she simply understood. In a lot of different NDEs, people simply understand things. And she mentions, and I have the clip right here, where she says, I suddenly understood ego as a different thing, and now I'm in service of others. I care about others because I understand that we all come from the same thing and we are the same thing at the end of the day. The contact that we're making, the message is this, and it's very, very clear. There's something here. I'm gonna, as I said, I'm gonna keep building on this argument. There's something here that is really important. It's the intention of thoughts towards other. A perception of, that is the, being in a place that feels like home. A return back of life. A return back to life. She returned back to life because she's telling her story, of course. But being in a place that feels like quote-unquote home. And as Jeff Mara says here, yes, this is very common. This, in the studies of near-death experiences, is a trademark. Is something that a lot of people say. And now, as I said, the experiences are different. Some people are in meadows, in fields, and they're flying through mountains. They go to different planets. They are in different realms. It seems that when we are in out of body, we have the capacity to manifest anything that we want, or whatever we are making contact with. And this is where quote-unquote contact gains emphasis, gains relevance. Because, just briefly before I close, just to make the point, because it's another argument that I will go into. I'm calling this project a rational quote-unquote divine outline. Why? Because we are perhaps on the process of redefining the concept of divinity. What exactly is divinity? So what are these people meeting? Are they meeting angels? Are they meeting their dead relatives? Are they meeting quote unquote God? Are they meeting their higher selves, like in this case? Or are they meeting what some people would refer to as extraterrestrial entities? And when I mean this, I don't mean the whole science fiction thing. I don't mean what we understand as it. But if we are talking about a larger cosmic reality, whatever is not from this consensus reality that we created on Earth would be extraterrestrial for us. But we don't know what this is. So the broader term of divinity, perhaps we are at the brink of looking into what exactly is all of this. So as I said, it seems that consciousness at large has this ability to recreate any sort of setting that is useful for us. And whatever we contact, whether it's our higher selves, whether it's ourselves, or if we like to think that all is God and we are part of God and we are God, we are contacting with this God or something else, whatever we are contacting chooses a way to contact us in a way that we understand them. In the case of this near-death experiencer, perhaps she was too scientific or too she would have seen into the other things, or she didn't believe in a heaven like that. So she was in a cosmic experience where she met herself, and that meeting with herself let her know everything that she needed to know to come back and share the same message that every other near-death experiencer talks about. So just to finish, the fact that a lot of people, regardless of the setting, regardless of the entities, and whether they meet a version of Jesus or beings of light or the light itself, whatever they meet, they feel like they're going back, quote unquote, home. The fact that this state of being, that this place is familiar to us, and that they all come back with some sort of a message, like if they had been tuned or something, could mean that perhaps we're playing some sort of a game where, and a lot of them say that it's sad for them to come back because they want to remain there because they feel love or they feel different things, so they know that this is home, this is a familiar place, and then they come back to Earth as if this was some sort of a playground of sorts. In my new book, I'm gonna approach a little bit of this. I don't know if I'm gonna go fully into it, otherwise that's gonna be another book. But this is the biggest question that some people who are a little bit more advanced into this and who have done the research are wondering: is life a prison, or is it a school to learn or to grow? What exactly is life itself? What exactly are we? If you're on the path of finding the truth about reality and our purpose as humans on Earth, the information that I have to share concerns you. After a lifetime of research in philosophies ranging from Buddhism to the occult, I've encountered themes and patterns along some baffling information that is beginning to be seriously studied by science. A Rational Divine Outline, The Ghost of Jesus, is the first iteration of this project, where I analyze the message of Jesus without dogmatism, fanaticism, or religious bias. You can find my work available on Amazon on the link below. If you find this work valuable, consider subscribing, sharing, and following me on social media, as it'll help others in the same path to find this information. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.